The millionaire invited his ex-girlfriend to his wedding, planning to humiliate her amidst the luxury and grandeur of the ceremony. However, he was shocked when she arrived, accompanied by a boy who was his exact look-alike. His arrogance quickly turned into unease. Who was that child? Before uncovering this emotional twist, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. The autumn sun filtered through the expansive windows of the executive office on the 47th floor of the Prudential Tower in Boston. Jason Greedy, at 38, gazed out over the urban skyline while absent-mindedly twirling a Mont Blanc pen between his fingers. His reflection in the tempered glass revealed a man with striking features, meticulously trimmed brown hair, and a custom-tailored Brioni suit that cost more than many luxury cars. "Mr. Greedy, Miss Dankworth is online too," his assistant announced through the intercom. "Thank you, Rachel," he replied, pressing the button on the device before taking the call. "Karen, darling. Jason, you won't believe it. I just had a meeting with the decorator, and he suggested something absolutely extraordinary for the plaza entrance." Karen's voice brimmed with excitement. "Picture a cascade of blue Vanda orchids flowing from the ceiling to the floor, each flower individually lit. It'll be perfect for our Starry Night theme." Jason smiled, imagining the astronomical cost of such extravagance. "It sounds wonderful, Karen. I trust your judgment." "Oh, and about the guest list." Karen hesitated. "We need to finalize it today. The designer needs to start on the personalized invitations tomorrow." Jason's smile faltered slightly. It was now or never. "Actually, I want to add one more name." "One more? I thought we had already capped it at 500 guests. It's someone from my past. Tiffany Collins." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Karen Dankworth could be many things, but naive wasn't one of them. As the heiress to the Dankworth agricultural empire, she had grown up learning to read between the lines. "Tiffany Collins, your college ex-girlfriend?" Her voice was controlled, but Jason recognized that tone. "Yes, I think it would be appropriate to invite her." "Appropriate?" Karen laughed humorlessly. "Jason, darling, nothing about inviting an ex-girlfriend to our wedding is appropriate, unless," she paused deliberately, "unless you have a specific reason." Jason stood and walked to the window. Below, Boston continued its frenetic pace, oblivious to the drama unfolding high above. "She works for the Boston Globe now. It would be great publicity for us." "Please don't insult me," Karen snapped. "You've never cared about publicity before." "What's really going on?" Jason closed his eyes, recalling the day he saw Tiffany's name in a newspaper article. The feeling that hit him was like a punch to the gut. 15 years had passed since he chose his career in London over her. 15 years building an empire, earning respect, power, and now preparing to marry one of the most coveted heiresses on the East Coast. "I want her to see," he finally admitted, his voice softer. "I want her to see where I've gotten." Karen's silence this time was different, more understanding. "You still think about her?" "It's not that," Jason responded quickly, perhaps too quickly. "It's about validation. Showing I made the right choice." "Fine," Karen sighed. "Add her to the list, but Jason, if this is really about validation, maybe we should talk about postponing the wedding." "Karen, don't be ridiculous. It's just an invitation." "If you say so." Her voice was distant now. "I have to go. I have a meeting with the chef about the menu." The call ended, leaving Jason alone with his thoughts. He returned to his Italian mahogany desk, opening a specific drawer. At the bottom, hidden beneath important papers, was a yellowed envelope. Inside, a single photograph. He and Tiffany during the last summer they spent together, smiling for the camera in front of MIT, young and in love, with no idea what the future held. Rachel entered the office with a stack of documents. "Mr. Greedy, the board is waiting in the conference room, and Mrs. Patterson from the events company called about the menu tasting." "Rachel," Jason interrupted, still looking at the photo, "I need you to find an address for me." "Tiffany Collins. She works for the Boston Globe." "Of course, sir." "Anything else?" Jason put the photo away. "Yes. Once you find the address, send one of our special invitations, the ones with the Swarovski crystal box." As Rachel left, Jason picked up his phone and opened the browser. He typed Tiffany Collins Boston Globe and began reading her recent articles. Every word felt so familiar, even after all this time. Her unique way of building arguments, her sharp insight into complex situations, She hadn't changed much. The intercom buzzed again. "Mr. Greedy? I found Miss Collins' address. She lives in Cambridge, not far from MIT, actually." Jason felt his heart race slightly. "Great. Send the invitation today." "One more thing, sir." Rachel hesitated. "While researching, I noticed she has a child. Should I include a +1 on the invitation?" The world seemed to stop for a moment. "A child?" "Yes, sir. A boy. He appears in some photos from the newspaper's events with her." Jason adjusted his tie, suddenly feeling constricted. "Yes, include the +1. And Rachel, find out more about this child." That evening, driving his Aston Martin DB11 back to his penthouse in Back Bay, Jason couldn't stop thinking about Tiffany and her child. 15 years was long enough to build an entire life. She was probably married, maybe to a professor or journalist, the kind of life he once considered too small for his ambitions. His phone rang. It was Karen again. "We still need to discuss Tiffany," she said without preamble. "I thought we'd already settled this." "Jason, you're about to marry me. I need to know if there's more to this story that I should be aware of." He parked the car, watching the city lights. "Karen, you're overreacting. It was 15 years ago. She probably won't even come. And if she does?" The question lingered in the air like a heavy cloud. Jason had no answer to it, or perhaps he was too afraid to admit what it might be. "The invitation has already been sent," he said finally. "Let's just move forward with the preparations. We have that dinner with your parents on Saturday, remember?" Karen sighed on the other end of the line. "Yes, at 7 at L'Espalier. Don't be late." As he ascended to his penthouse, Jason reflected on how his life had become an exercise in calculated perfection. Marrying Karen was yet another carefully positioned piece on his social chessboard. She was beautiful, refined, and her last name opened doors that even his wealth couldn't. It was the perfect move. So why did inviting Tiffany feel like it had upended the entire board? The Boston Plaza Hotel buzzed with the commotion of final preparations for the wedding of the year. The cascade of blue Vanda orchids, just as Karen had envisioned, flowed majestically from the ceiling of the lobby, creating an ethereal ambiance. Jason watched the staff scurrying back and forth through the window of the presidential suite as he prepared for the ceremony. "Mr. Greedy?" Rachel knocked on the door, entering with a tablet in hand. "The final confirmation list has arrived." Jason adjusted his Italian silk tie in front of the mirror. "And?" Tiffany Collins confirmed her attendance, with a guest. His reflection in the mirror showed a slight tremor in his hands. "Great. Anything else?" Rachel hesitated, her fingers gripping the tablet. "Sir, about the research you asked for." She paused, carefully choosing her words. "Miss Collins's son, Owen he's 8 years old." Jason froze, his mind quickly doing the math. 8 years. He had left Boston 15 years ago, but returned once, 7 years later, for a board meeting. That night, "Rachel, I need you to—" "Mr. Greedy?" Karen entered the suite, stunning in her silk robe. "Can we talk privately?" Rachel discreetly nodded and left, placing the tablet on a side table. Karen waited for the door to close before speaking. "I just saw the confirmation list," she said, her voice controlled. "Tiffany Collins is really coming. Karen, let's not start this now." "No, Jason, we will." She stepped closer, her green eyes fixed on him. "Because I just discovered something interesting about your ex-girlfriend. Something you should have told me." Jason's heart raced. "What are you talking about?" "About that night, 8 years ago, when you came back to Boston for a board meeting." Karen crossed her arms. "You met her, didn't you?" The memory of that night crashed into his mind like a wave. The bar at the Four Seasons, Tiffany sitting alone, the way their eyes met across the dimly lit room, the hours of conversation, the laughter, the wine, and then, "It was just one night," he said quietly. "And you never spoke to her again?" "No." The word felt heavy in his mouth. "I went back to London the next morning. We had that big merger." "My God, Jason." Karen laughed bitterly. "You really have no idea, do you?" Before he could respond, a commotion in the hallway drew his attention. Raised voices approached the suite. "Ma'am, you can't go in there." Rachel's voice sounded distressed. The door swung open forcefully, and there she was. Tiffany Collins, more mature than in his memories, but still with that determined look that had captivated him so many years ago. And beside her, Jason felt the air leave his lungs. The boy was his spitting image at 8 years old. The same eyes, the same jawline, even the way he furrowed his brow in confusion. "Tiffany," he managed to say. "Hello, Jason." Her voice was calm, contrasting with the tension in the room. "I think it's time you met your son." Karen let out a bitter laugh. "Well, that explains a lot." She turned to Jason. "Did you know?" "No," he answered, unable to take his eyes off Owen. "I didn't." "I tried to tell you," Tiffany interrupted. "After that night, I sent emails, left messages at your office. But you were too busy with your merger in London, weren't you?" Owen glanced between the adults, clearly uncomfortable. "Mom?" "It's okay, sweetheart." Tiffany placed a hand on her son's shoulder. "Remember what we talked about in the car?" The boy nodded, his eyes, Jason's eyes, studying the man before him. "Are you my dad?" The simplicity of the question hit Jason like a freight train. Memories of his own fatherless childhood flooded his mind. The Father's Day events he spent alone, the baseball games with no one cheering for him, the nights wishing someone would show up. "Yes," he replied, his voice breaking. "I am." "Cool." Owen shrugged, but Jason noticed how he clung to his mother's hand. "Do you have a PlayStation?" A choked sob drew everyone's attention. Karen stood against the wall, silent tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. "Karen," Jason began. "No." She raised her hand. "Don't you dare." Turning to Rachel, who still stood at the door, she ordered, "Cancel everything now. Miss Dankworth, there are 500 guests downstairs." "Cancel it!" Karen shouted, before regaining her composure. "And call my parents. Tell them there's been a family emergency." Tiffany stepped forward. "Karen, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "No," Karen cut her off. "Don't be. You're doing what you should have done 8 years ago." She looked at Jason, her eyes as hard as emeralds. "As for you, I hope it was worth keeping your secrets." With that, she left the suite, leaving behind a deafening silence. Jason loosened his tie, feeling suffocated. "Owen," Tiffany spoke gently, "why don't you go with Rachel to the cafe? I heard they have the best milkshakes in Boston." The boy hesitated. "But we just met." "I know, sweetheart, but Mommy needs to talk to your dad for a moment. I promise we won't take long." Rachel extended her hand to Owen, who took it after casting one last curious glance at Jason. When the door closed, Tiffany turned to him. "I didn't come here to ruin your wedding." "Then why did you come?" "Because Owen started asking questions. Questions I couldn't answer on my own anymore." She pulled something out of her bag, an old photo. "He found this last month." Jason recognized the photo. It was the same one he kept in his drawer. Him and Tiffany during their MIT days. "He's brilliant, you know," Tiffany continued. "Just like you were, he loves science, always wanting to figure out how things work. When he saw the photo, he started researching you, found articles, interviews. He's the one who wanted to come to the wedding. Why didn't you tell me before?" "Before when, Jason?" Her voice wavered slightly. "When you left for London without looking back? Or after that night, when you ignored all my attempts to reach you?" Jason sank heavily into an armchair. "I was building something big. I couldn't afford distractions." "Distractions?" Tiffany laughed without humor. "Is that how you see family? As a distraction?" "No, He ran his hands over his face. "I don't know what I think anymore. When I saw you two walk through that doors, it's like my whole world flipped upside down. Welcome to my world for the past 8 years." She sat in the chair opposite him. "Owen is an incredible kid, Jason. He deserves to know his father, even if that father chose power and money over love." Her words hit him like daggers. "What do you want from me, Tiffany?" "Me? Nothing. But Owen, he deserves the chance to have a father. If you want that, of course. If you're ready to be more than just a successful CEO with a penthouse in Back Bay." The silence that followed was interrupted by voices in the hallway, guests being informed of the cancellation. Jason could hear the indignation, the speculation, the malicious gossip that would undoubtedly circulate for months to come. "What's he like?" The question escaped him before he could stop it. A small smile touched Tiffany's lips. "He loves astronomy. He has a telescope in his room and knows all the constellations. He plays baseball in the youth league. He's a pitcher, like you were. He hates broccoli but loves pepperoni pizza. He's afraid of thunder, but pretends he isn't. And," she hesitated, "he asks about you. He's always asked." Jason felt something break inside him. Maybe his pride, maybe the mask he'd been wearing for so long. "I want to meet him," he said finally. For real. Not just as a dramatic introduction at a cancelled wedding. Are you sure? Because this isn't something you can walk away from when the next big merger comes along. I'm sure. And for the first time in a long time, Jason felt he was being completely honest. At that moment, Owen returned to the suite, a half-finished chocolate milkshake in his hand. "Mom, did you know they have a giant chocolate fountain in the kitchen?" "Really?" Tiffany smiled. "Yeah. And Rachel said we can eat all the chocolate we want because..." He paused, realizing what he was about to say. "Because the wedding's cancelled," Jason finished softly. "Owen, I'd like to talk to you if that's okay." The boy looked at his mother, who nodded encouragingly. "About what?" "Well, for starters, how about you tell me about this telescope of yours?" Owen's eyes lit up. "It's a Celestron Nexstar 8 SE. I can see Saturn's rings with it, and last week I saw Jupiter's moons and..." As Owen animatedly talked about astronomy, Jason realized he was smiling, not the practiced smile he used in business meetings, but a genuine smile, one he hadn't worn in years. Downstairs, the grand ballroom of the Boston Plaza Hotel was a scene of controlled chaos. 500 members of the East Coast's social and business elite whispered and speculated as staff discreetly began dismantling the decorations that had cost a fortune. The blue Vanda orchids, still perfect in their cascading arrangement, seemed to watch the scene with silent irony. On the mezzanine overlooking the ballroom, Charles Dankworth, Karen's father and CEO of the family's agricultural empire, gestured furiously as he spoke into his phone. "I don't care what you have to do, manage this situation. We can't have the press speculating about..." His wife, Victoria, intercepted a passing waiter, taking 2 glasses of champagne from his tray. Her eyes, as green as her daughter's, scanned the ballroom like a general surveying a battlefield. Meanwhile, in the presidential suite-turned-makeshift command center, Jason faced a decision that would change not only his life, but everyone's around him. Owen had fallen asleep on one of the couches, exhausted from the day's emotional roller coaster, while Tiffany sat nearby, occasionally brushing a protective hand over his hair. "Mr. Greedy," Rachel entered the suite quietly, "the Dankworth family lawyers are here. They insist on discussing the terms of the prenuptial agreement and potential legal implications of the current situation." Jason looked at Owen sleeping, then at Tiffany. Something inside him shifted, as if a long out-of-place piece finally found its fit. "Rachel," he said, his voice firm, "call Bernard. Your personal attorney." "Yes, and prepare a statement for the press. I'm making an announcement." Tiffany's eyes widened. "Jason, you don't have to..." "I do," he interrupted her softly. "For the first time in a long time, I really need to do something." Bernard arrived 15 minutes later, his immaculate Italian suit contrasting with his worried expression. "Jason, for heaven's sake, what's going on? I have 3 missed calls from the Dankworths and..." He stopped when he saw Owen sleeping and Tiffany. His expression shifted from concern to understanding. "Ah, Bernard, I need you to prepare some documents," Jason began, his voice low to avoid waking Owen. "First, I want to officially acknowledge Owen as my son. Second, set up a trust fund in his name. And third," he took a deep breath, "I want to resign as CEO of Greedy Enterprises." "What?" Tiffany and Bernard exclaimed in unison. "Jason," Bernard recovered first, "you built this company from the ground up. It's your legacy." "No," Jason said, looking at Owen. "He's my legacy. The company, it was about proving something, about being bigger, better, more powerful than my own father who abandoned us. But now," he smiled sadly, "now I realize I was becoming just like him." Tiffany stood and approached him. "You don't have to give everything up." "I'm not giving up. So I'm choosing. For the first time in my life, I'm really choosing what matters." A commotion from the hallway interrupted their conversation. The door opened to reveal Karen, still in her silk robe, but now with red eyes and disheveled hair. "So, that's it?" she asked, her voice shaking. 15 years of building something together, and you're going to throw it all away for a child you didn't even know existed until today?" Jason stepped toward her, gently taking her hands. "Karen, we never built anything together. We built alongside each other. You with your empire, me with mine. It was a perfect corporate merger, but it was never love. How dare you?" She pulled her hands away. "I loved you. You loved the idea of me. The successful CEO, the self-made man, the perfect partner for the society pages. But Karen, When was the last time we talked about anything that wasn't business or appearances? Tears were streaming freely down her face now. Don't do this, Jason. Think about the scandal, the company's stock, everything we've built. That's exactly what I'm doing, he replied gently. I'm thinking about building something real for the first time in my life. A movement on the couch caught everyone's attention. Owen was waking up, rubbing his sleepy eyes. Mom? I'm here, sweetheart, Tiffany responded immediately. Karen looked at the boy, then at Jason, and finally at Tiffany. Something in her expression shifted, as if a mask had fallen away. You know, she said to Tiffany, I always knew there was something he was holding on to, a regret he carried. I thought I could make him forget, with enough time, enough money, enough power. She laughed bitterly. What a fool I was. Karen, Tiffany began, but she was interrupted. No, I don't need your pity, or your guilt. She turned to Jason. Make your announcement. Claim your son. Resign your position. But know that when the dust settles and the novelty fades, you'll realize what you've thrown away. With that, she left the suite, leaving a heavy silence behind. Owen, now fully awake, looked around at the adults. Is everything okay? He asked. Jason approached him, kneeling down in front of his son. It will be, I promise. Bernard cleared his throat, drawing attention. Jason, if you're serious about this, we need to move quickly. The press is already speculating and the markets open in a few hours. Right, Jason stood. Get everything ready. I'll make the announcement in... He checked his watch. 30 minutes. Are you sure? Tiffany asked softly. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The next 30 minutes were a whirlwind of activity. Rachel coordinated the transformation of the ballroom into an impromptu press room. Bernard drafted an initial statement, while public relations staff scrambled around with phones glued to their ears. Owen, sitting between Jason and Tiffany on a distant sofa, played with his phone. Can I play Minecraft while you talk to the people? Jason smiled. Of course, but afterward. How about we get some ice cream? I know a great spot near MIT. The boy's eyes lit up. Can we visit my old professor there too? He has a really cool lab with tons of robots. Professor? Jason looked at Tiffany curiously. Dr. Martinez, she explained. Owen participates in a mentorship program in the robotics department. Apparently, having an above-average IQ comes with some perks. The pride Jason felt in that moment nearly overwhelmed him. His son, was already involved in robotics at MIT. It was more than he could have ever dreamed. Mr. Greedy, Rachel appeared. It's time. Jason stood, adjusting his suit. Tiffany briefly held his hand. Good luck. He squeezed her hand in response and walked to the makeshift podium. The camera lights hit him like a spotlight, and for the first time in his professional life, Jason Greedy felt his palms sweat. Good evening, he began, his voice steady despite his nerves. Today was supposed to be my wedding day. Instead, it became the day I finally understood the true meaning of family. The true meaning of family and responsibility, Jason continued, his gaze occasionally drifting to where Owen and Tiffany sat. Today I discovered I have a son, a brilliant, curious, and lively boy who has spent the past 8 years without a father. Not because his mother wanted it that way, but because I was too busy chasing hollow dreams. The camera flashes were relentless, and the murmurs of the reporters grew louder with every word. In the front row, Charles and Victoria Dankworth sat with stone-faced expressions, while Karen was notably absent. For years, I measured my success by the size of my bank account, the number of companies I acquired, and the skyscrapers I built. But today, looking into my son's eyes for the first time, I realized I've failed in what truly matters. Jason paused, taking a sip of water. His hands still trembled slightly, but his voice remained steady. Which is why I'm here to make 3 announcements. First, I'm officially and publicly acknowledging Owen Collins as my son, born from my relationship with Tiffany Collins. Second, I'm establishing a substantial trust fund in his name, not as compensation for lost years, but as a guarantee for his future. And third, he took a deep breath. I am resigning as CEO of Greedy Enterprises. The room erupted in exclamations and questions. Dozens of hands shot up. Microphones were thrust toward him, and the noise became deafening. Mr. Greedy, how will this affect the company's stock? Mr. Greedy, has the Dankworth family made a statement yet? Mr. Greedy, does this relate to the pending merger with European Ventures? Jason raised his hands, signaling for silence. I will answer a few questions, but first, I'd like to say one more thing. He turned directly to the cameras. To Karen Dankworth, I'm sorry. You deserved more than a man who couldn't give you his whole heart. To my shareholders, the company is in excellent hands with our current board. And to my son, his voice faltered slightly. I'm sorry for all the baseball games I missed, for all the nights under the full moon we didn't spend looking through your telescope, for all the moments I should have been there. But I promise from now on to be present in every moment I can. At the back of the room, Bernard watched with a mix of pride and worry. Beside him, Rachel typed furiously on her tablet, likely dealing with the flood of emails and messages already pouring in. Mr. Greedy, one reporter managed to rise above the clamor. How do you plan to balance your remaining corporate responsibilities with your new family life? My resignation as CEO is just the first step, Jason replied. Over the next few months, I'll gradually step away from the company's daily operations, retaining only an advisory role on the board. My focus now will be on getting to know my son and rebuilding something I should never have lost. His eyes briefly met Tiffany's, and for a moment he saw a flicker of the connection they had shared so many years ago. Mr. Greedy, another reporter shouted. There are rumors the Dankworth family plans to sue for breach of contract and emotional damages. Any comment? Charles Dankworth abruptly rose from his seat and walked toward the podium. The room fell into a tense silence as he approached Jason. For a moment, the two men stared at each other. My daughter, Charles began, his voice carrying the weight of decades of power and influence, was prepared to marry you. Our family was ready to unite with yours. But now, he paused dramatically, now I see that we're better off having discovered your true nature before it was too late. Jason stood tall, meeting the older man's gaze. Mr. Dankworth, I respect your family and, above all, your daughter. That's precisely why I couldn't go through with something that wasn't genuine. Charles laughed without humor. Genuine? You speak of genuineness after hiding a son for 8 years? I didn't hide him, Jason replied firmly. I didn't know. And now that I do, I'm doing the only thing a real man can do, taking responsibility. At the back of the room, Owen shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Tiffany pulled him closer, whispering something that seemed to calm him. Charles observed the scene for a moment before turning back to Jason. You've just thrown away an empire. No, Jason said with a gentle smile. I've just gained a family. The murmurs in the room resumed, even more intense. Bernard quickly stepped up to the podium, announcing that there would be no further questions. As security began escorting reporters out, Jason returned to where Owen and Tiffany sat. Still up for that ice cream? He asked his son. Owen smiled, a smile that mirrored his own. Can we go see the robots afterward? Of course, Jason said, looking at Tiffany. If your mom agrees, that is. She nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I think we all deserve some ice cream after today. As they walked out of the hotel, avoiding the reporters through a back exit, Jason felt his phone vibrating incessantly in his pocket, no doubt dozens of messages from shareholders, business partners, and journalists. For the first time in his life, he turned it off completely. You know, Owen said as they got into the car, my friends at school aren't going to believe me when I tell them my dad is famous. Jason laughed, feeling a happiness no corporate merger had ever given him. How about we focus on getting to know each other first? Fame can wait. Tiffany smiled beside him. He's right, sweetheart. You two have a lot of catching up to do. As the car pulled away from the Boston Plaza Hotel, leaving behind the chaos of the press and the blue Vanda orchids, Jason realized he wasn't just changing his life. He was finally beginning to live it. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the window of the temporary office Jason had set up in his Cambridge apartment. After resigning as CEO, he had moved out of the luxurious Back Bay penthouse to be closer to Owen. The walls, once adorned with expensive contemporary art, now showcased colorful drawings of robots and planets, gifts from his son. Mr. Greedy, Rachel's voice came through the intercom. Even after his resignation, she had chosen to continue working with him, now helping to manage his new life. Owen's here for breakfast. Jason smiled, setting aside the documents he had been reviewing. Over the past few weeks, they had established a routine. Breakfast together on Wednesdays and Fridays before school. It was a small start, but meaningful. Dad! Owen burst into the office, carrying his MIT backpack. You won't believe what happened in the lab yesterday. Good morning to you too, son, Jason laughed, pulling him into a hug. Where's your mum? Here. Tiffany appeared in the doorway, holding a folder. Owen, show your dad what you made. With shining eyes, Owen pulled a small robot out of his backpack. It's a prototype for a Mars explorer. Dr. Martinez helped me with the programming, but I designed the whole thing myself. Jason examined the robot with genuine interest. It was surprisingly sophisticated for a child's project, complete with motion sensors and a small solar panel. Impressive, he said, his chest swelling with pride. Have you thought about improving the solar panel efficiency? Actually, Owen began enthusiastically, but Tiffany cut him off. After breakfast, honey, you need to eat before school. The three of them moved to the kitchen, where Rachel had prepared a generous spread. It was a stark contrast to the solitary breakfasts Jason used to have in his office at Greedy Enterprises. How's the article on education reform coming along? Jason asked Tiffany as he poured juice for Owen. Almost finished, she replied, buttering a piece of toast. But I didn't just bring Owen today. We need to talk about his birthday party. Jason froze momentarily. Owen's 9th birthday was in 2 weeks, and he was determined to make it special. I know, Owen exclaimed through bites of waffle. We could have it at the planetarium. Dr. Martinez said he could arrange a special presentation. That's a fantastic idea, Tiffany smiled. What do you think, Jason? I think it's perfect, he replied, already mentally planning how to make the event even more memorable. In fact, I have a surprise that might complement that. Owen sat up straighter, his eyes wide. What surprise? If I tell you, it won't be a surprise, will it? Jason winked. But I think you'll like it. After breakfast, while Owen brushed his teeth before school, Tiffany took the opportunity to speak privately with Jason. You're doing well, she said softly. Owen talks about you all the time. Really? Jason's heart warmed at the thought. Yes. Last night, he asked if he could stay here overnight sometime. Jason felt a lump in his throat. What did you say? I think it's time, she smiled. But let's start slow. Maybe after his birthday party. Tiffany, he hesitated, choosing his words carefully. I know I'm still learning how to be a father, and I've made more mistakes than I can count, but I want to be a part of his life. Really be a part of it, not just for breakfasts and alternating weekends. Tiffany studied him for a moment. Is that why you moved to Cambridge? Partly, he admitted. The other part, his eyes met hers. The other part was to be closer to you too. The silence that followed was delicate, like a fragile soap bubble suspended in the air. Ready, Owen called, bounding back into the kitchen. Can we go now? Of course, sweetheart, Tiffany said, breaking eye contact with Jason. Your dad's coming with us to school today, right? Can I? Owen asked hopefully. Always? Jason smiled, grabbing his car keys. During the drive to school, Owen chattered endlessly about his robotics project, his baseball practices, and his excitement for the planetarium party. Jason watched him in the rearview mirror, amazed at how eloquent and enthusiastic his son was about so many different things. And after the party, can we look at Jupiter's moons with my telescope? Owen asked, finishing a long monologue about astronomy. Of course, Jason replied. In fact, that reminds me. He glanced briefly at Tiffany, who gave a subtle nod. How about we go camping this weekend? I know a perfect spot for stargazing. Owen's eyes lit up. Really? Can we bring the telescope? And all the astronomy gear you want? Mom, will you come too? Owen asked hopefully. Tiffany hesitated. I don't know, sweetheart. I have that article deadline. Please, Owen pleaded. It'll be more fun if we all go together. Jason kept his eyes on the road, but his heart raced slightly. The thought of spending an entire weekend with Owen and Tiffany, away from everything and everyone, was both exhilarating and terrifying. All right, Tiffany finally relented, but only if you promise to finish all your homework first. I promise, Owen cheered. When they arrived at school, Owen hugged both parents before running off to join his friends. Jason and Tiffany watched until he disappeared into the building. He looks happy, Jason remarked. He is, Tiffany confirmed. Happier than I've seen him in a long time. And you? She turned to face him. I'm happy too, Jason. Happy that Owen finally has the father he always wanted. Happy to see you really trying to be part of his life. And what about us? The question lingered in the air, delicate and iridescent, waiting for an answer. Jason, I'm not asking for anything, he quickly interjected. Want you to know that night, 8 years ago, wasn't just another night for me. It wasn't for me either, she admitted softly. But a lot has happened since then. I know. And I know I need to prove I've changed, not just as a father, but as a man. Tiffany gave him a sad smile. Let's focus on Owen for now, okay? The rest, time will tell. Jason nodded, respecting her decision. As they walked back to the car, he reflected on how much his life had changed in the past few months. The man who once lived for mergers and acquisitions now spent his mornings discussing robotics and astronomy with an 8-year-old boy. The executive who measured success in dollars now found his greatest joy in his son's smiles and hugs. In his makeshift home office, he found Rachel organizing his schedule for the day. The company's stock rose 2% after the announcement of the new CEO, she informed him, and there are 3 invitations for talks about your transition from corporate life to family life. Decline them, Jason said as he sat at his desk. My only priority now is preparing for a very important camping trip. Rachel smiled, jotting notes on her tablet. Should I research the best camping gear? Please. And Rachel, I need you to do one more thing. Of course, sir. Find the best astronomy expert in the area. I want to learn everything about constellations before the weekend. As Rachel left to handle her tasks, Jason picked up one of Owen's drawings from the wall, a detailed sketch of a robot explorer with technical annotations in the margins. His son was brilliant, curious, and full of dreams. For the first time in his life, Jason realized his own dream had nothing to do with business or power. During the week leading up to the camping trip, Jason immersed himself in an intensive private astronomy course. Dr. Eleanor Blackwood, a renowned astronomer from the Harvard-Smithsonian Observatory, spent hours explaining constellations, planetary movements, and celestial phenomena. Mr. Greedy, she remarked during one of their sessions. It's unusual to see someone so dedicated to learning all this in such a short time. My son, Jason explained, studying a star map. He knows every constellation, every planet. I want to share that with him. I want to understand his world. On Friday afternoon, while organizing camping gear in his new SUV, far more suited for family adventures than his old Aston Martin, Jason received an unexpected text from Karen. I saw your interview on Bloomberg. You look happy. I hope you found what you were looking for. He stared at the message for a long moment before replying, I found something I didn't even know I was looking for. I hope you find your happiness too, Karen. Tiffany and Owen arrived promptly at 4 p.m. as planned. Owen practically bounced with excitement, carrying his favorite telescope and a backpack full of astronomy books. Dad, you won't believe it. There's going to be a meteor shower this weekend. The Perseids, Jason said, proud of his newly acquired knowledge. It happens every year between July and August when Earth passes through the debris of the Swift-Tuttle comet. Both Owen and Tiffany stared at him in surprise. How do you know that? Owen asked, impressed. Let's just say your dad has been studying. Tiffany replied for him, a soft smile on her lips. The drive to the campsite, a remote area in New Hampshire renowned for its exceptionally dark skies, was filled with animated conversations about astronomy, Owen's school stories, and occasional stops to take photos of the scenic landscapes. Did you know this is one of the best places on the East Coast for stargazing? Owen explained as they set up camp. The light pollution index here is almost 0. Really? Jason feigned surprise, winking discreetly at Tiffany. He had researched extensively to find the perfect location. As night fell, the 3 of them gathered around a small campfire, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. Owen was particularly eager to hear about how his parents met at MIT. Your mom was the brightest student in the journalism program, Jason recounted, his eyes lost in the memories. I first saw her in the library, surrounded by books on ethics in investigative reporting. And your dad, Tiffany added, was the typical business nerd who thought he could conquer the world. And I did, Jason reflected. I just didn't realize I was conquering the wrong things. The silence that followed was filled only by the crackling fire and the distant sound of crickets. Owen, absorbed in setting up his telescope, seemed oblivious to the tension between his parents. Dad, come look! You can see Saturn's ring super clearly. Jason stood, grateful for the interruption. As he leaned over the telescope, he felt Tiffany's presence beside him, her familiar perfume mingling with the scent of pine trees. You really have changed, she whispered, just for him to hear. I had to, he replied in the same tone. For him, for you, for me. The night unfolded with Owen pointing out constellations, Jason impressing him with his newfound knowledge, and Tiffany documenting the evening with her professional camera. When the meteor shower began, the three of them lay on a blanket, marveling at the natural spectacle. "Make a wish," Owen exclaimed with each shooting star. Jason didn't need to make any wishes. Everything he had ever wanted was there under the starry New Hampshire sky. His brilliant, curious son, the woman he had never stopped loving, and a sense of peace that billions of dollars had never been able to buy. Autumn in Cambridge transformed the MIT campus into an impressionist canvas of reds and golds. Jason walked through the familiar halls of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, no longer as the ambitious student of decades ago, nor as the business mogul who once made million-dollar donations, but as the father of one of the youngest participants in the robotics mentorship program. "Mr. Greedy," Dr. Martinez greeted him at the entrance to the lab. "Owen is putting the finishing touches on his project. He's been insistent on keeping it a surprise until today." It was the day of the MIT Science Fair, a prestigious event that rarely accepted participants so young. Owen had been an exception. His talent for robotics and dedication to learning had impressed the professors enough to earn him a special invitation to present his project. "Dad! Mom!" Owen ran over to them, wearing a lab coat that was slightly too small for his growing frame. Over the past months, he had shot up several inches, and his features were beginning to show a clear blend of Jason and Tiffany. "Come see." Tiffany, who had arrived moments earlier with her professional camera in hand, smiled at her son's enthusiasm. "I can't wait to see this surprise you've kept so well hidden." Owen led them through the lab to a reserved area, where a structure covered by a cloth stood at the center of the space. With a dramatic flourish, he pulled off the cloth, revealing something that took Jason and Tiffany's breath away. It was a complex robotic system integrated with an automated telescope. Around it, several screens displayed real-time data on stellar positions and atmospheric conditions. "It's an automated astronomical observation system," Owen explained, his eyes sparkling with pride. "It combines astronomy and robotics. The telescope can automatically adjust to compensate for Earth's rotation and weather conditions, and the program I developed lets it identify and track specific celestial objects." Jason felt his chest swell with pride. His son hadn't just combined his two passions, astronomy and robotics, but had created something truly innovative. "Owen," Dr. Martinez approached, "I think it's time to tell your parents the other news." The boy practically vibrated with excitement. "MIT wants to patent my project, and they want me to keep working on it as part of a special research program." Tiffany hugged her son, tears of pride shining in her eyes. "My love, that's incredible." Jason stood silent for a moment, absorbing the gravity of the moment. His son, at just 9 years old, had accomplished something many scientists spent decades striving for. But beyond the technical achievement, it was Owen's passion and dedication that moved him most. "There's one more thing," Owen said, now more serious. "I dedicated the project to both of you." He pointed to a small plaque at the base of the telescope. "For my dad, who taught me it's never too late to do the right thing, and my mom, who never stopped believing in me. With love, Owen Collins Greedy." The use of the hybrid name Collins Greedy, which Owen had started using informally in recent weeks, didn't go unnoticed by anyone. "Owen," Jason began, his voice thick with emotion, but he was interrupted by a commotion at the entrance to the lab. Karen Dankworth, as elegant as ever in a Chanel pantsuit, walked toward them. The silence that followed was tense, but she maintained a polite smile. "I came to see the science fair," she explained, stopping at a respectful distance. "The Dankworth Foundation is one of the sponsors, after all." Her eyes turned to Owen. "You must be the young genius everyone's talking about." Owen, ever polite, extended his hand. "Owen Collins. Collins Greedy. Nice to meet you, Miss Dankworth." Karen's smile softened, becoming more genuine. "The pleasure is mine, Owen. Your project is impressive." She turned to Jason and Tiffany. "You must be very proud." "We are," Tiffany replied kindly, instinctively reaching for Jason's hand. The gesture didn't escape Karen's notice, and she nodded slightly. "Well, I just wanted to offer my congratulations. And," she hesitated for a moment, "to let you know that the Dankworth Foundation would like to offer a research grant for the continued development of this project." Owen's eyes widened. "Really?" "Absolutely. Talent like yours deserves to be nurtured, regardless of personal circumstances." With that, she gracefully excused herself, leaving the room feeling lighter than when she arrived. "That was unexpected," Jason remarked. "It was mature of her," Tiffany said softly. The rest of the afternoon was a whirlwind of presentations, interviews with local press, and conversations with impressed professors and researchers. Owen shone in every interaction, explaining his project with a perfect blend of technical knowledge and youthful enthusiasm. When the fair finally ended, the three of them decided to celebrate at a small Italian restaurant where Jason and Tiffany used to dine during their college days. "They still make that mushroom ravioli you loved," Jason noted as they settled into a cozy table in the back. "You remember that?" Tiffany asked, surprised. "I remember everything," he replied simply. Owen, engrossed in the kids' menu, seemed oblivious to the moment between his parents. "Can I get pepperoni pizza?" "Of course, sweetheart," Tiffany smiled. "Today is your day." As they waited for their food, Owen animatedly recounted all the scientists he had met at the fair and his plans to further improve his project. Jason and Tiffany exchanged proud glances, their hands occasionally brushing on the table. "You know," Owen said suddenly, his tone more serious, "I have one more surprise." He pulled a folded envelope from his pocket and handed it to his parents. Inside was a drawing, 3 stick figures, one tall, one medium, and one small, standing in front of a house. "It's the house I saw in Cambridge last week, remember, Dad? The one with the big yard where we could set up an observatory?" He paused, hesitating. "I thought, well, now that you two are dating again..." Jason and Tiffany exchanged surprised glances. They had been discreet about their recent rekindling, going out for occasional dinners only after Owen was asleep. "How did you..." Tiffany began. Owen rolled his eyes in the way only a near preteen could. "Mom, you've been wearing your special perfume a lot more lately. And Dad, you smile at your phone every time she texts you. I'm not a little kid anymore, you know?" Jason couldn't suppress a laugh. His son was indeed remarkably observant. "And would you approve of this?" "Duh!" Owen exclaimed. "Why do you think I've been accidentally leaving you two alone after family dinners, or always asking both of you to take me places?" Tiffany covered her face with her hands, laughing and tearing up at the same time. "Oh my God, we've been outsmarted by a 9-year-old. "Almost 10, Owen corrected. "And it wasn't manipulation. It was strategic facilitation." "Been reading my business books?" Jason asked, amused. "Actually," Owen grinned, "Grandma Martha taught me. She said you two are too stubborn to see the obvious on your own." Tiffany's mother, who had surprisingly become an ally of Jason's in recent months, was apparently orchestrating things behind the scenes as well. "Owen," Tiffany began gently, "adult relationships are complicated." "They shouldn't be," he interrupted. "You love each other. You always have. Why make it complicated?" The silence that followed Owen's words was interrupted by the arrival of their dishes: pepperoni pizza for him, mushroom ravioli for Tiffany, and linguine al mare for Jason. For a few moments, only the clinking of cutlery and the soft hum of conversations around them filled the air. "The house," Jason finally spoke, "the one you drew, I already made an offer on it." Tiffany and Owen froze, their forks mid-air. "You what?" Tiffany asked softly. "It was after the camping trip," Jason explained, swirling the wine in his glass absent-mindedly. "I realized I didn't want to live in luxury apartments or isolated penthouses anymore. I wanted a place with a yard where Owen could play, room for an observatory like he's always dreamed of, and..." He looked directly at Tiffany. "Enough bedrooms for a family to grow." Owen practically jumped out of his chair. "Does that mean we're all going to live together?" "Hold on, son," Jason chuckled. "First, we need to see if your mom would even consider it." Tiffany fiddled with the napkin in her lap, her hands slightly trembling. "Jason, that's a really big step." "I know, and I promise I'm not trying to rush anything. The house would be mine at first, a place for Owen to have his own room when he's with me, space for his projects." He paused. "But it could also be a place where we build something new, at our own pace." "The yard has an apple tree," Owen added hopefully. "Like the one Grandma Martha had in her garden. Remember, Mom?" Tiffany couldn't help but smile. The apple tree in her mother's garden had been her refuge during her pregnancy, when she felt most alone and scared. "And there's a perfect office for you to work on your articles," Jason continued. "It overlooks the garden. You two planned this, didn't you?" She glanced between father and son. "Actually," Owen grinned, "it was Dad's idea. I just helped pick the room that would be my lab." At that moment, The waiter approached with a small dessert, a tiramisu, Tiffany's favorite from her college days. But this one was different. On the cocoa-dusted top, written in chocolate, were the words, "Marry me." Tiffany's eyes filled with tears as Jason knelt beside her chair, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. 15 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life, choosing ambition over love. 8 years ago, fate gave us a second chance, and I nearly squandered it again. But now, he opened the box to reveal a delicate sapphire ring, her favorite gemstone, not the ostentatious diamond one might expect. Now I know exactly what I want. I want to wake up every morning beside you. I want to watch our son grow up in a home filled with love and laughter. I want to build an observatory in the yard and spend nights stargazing with both of you. I want— Yes, Tiffany interrupted, tears streaming freely down her face. I wasn't finished with my speech, Jason teased, his own eyes glistening. You don't need to be, she smiled, pulling him into a kiss. The entire restaurant erupted in applause. Owen leapt from his chair, hugging his parents tightly. Finally! Suddenly, camera flashes began lighting up through the restaurant windows. The press, apparently having followed the family from the science fair, was capturing the moment. Oh no, Tiffany murmured, conscious of the cameras. Hey, Jason said, gently holding her face. Don't worry about them. Tonight is ours, our families. Family Collins greedy, Owen shouted joyfully, making everyone laugh. That night, after dropping Owen off at his maternal grandparents' house, who surprisingly had already known about Jason's proposal plan, Jason and Tiffany walked through the MIT campus, reminiscing about the places that marked their history. That library, Tiffany pointed out, where you pretended to study just to see me. And that bench, Jason said, gesturing, where you told me you were in love with me. And that lab, Tiffany continued, where we had our first kiss. Jason stopped walking and pulled her close. You know what else happened on this campus? What? It's where I promised myself a few months ago that I'd get everything right this time, that I'd be the man you and Owen deserve. Tiffany rested her head on his chest, listening to the strong, steady beat of his heart. You already are, Jason. You've changed so much. For you, he said softly, and for Owen. And I'll keep changing, growing and improving, because now I know what truly matters. Tiffany's phone buzzed. It was a message from Owen, with several photos of the engagement proposal, already published online by the photographers. The last picture showed the three of them hugging and smiling, with the headline, Former Greedy Enterprises CEO finds true wealth in reclaimed family. Well, Jason laughed. At least they got the headline right this time. The house in Cambridge was unrecognizable that spring morning. The backyard, now a meticulously landscaped garden, had been transformed into a fairy tale setting for an intimate wedding. The apple tree, adorned with white blossoms, served as a natural altar, while paper lanterns hung from its branches, ready to light up the celebration at dusk. Owen, now freshly 10 years old, adjusted his tiny tuxedo for the 10th time. As the ring bearer, he took his responsibilities very seriously. Dad, he called, walking into the office where Jason was getting ready. Grandma Martha says Mum's almost ready. Oh, and the people from the observatory just arrived. The observatory, an early wedding gift from Jason to the family, had been completed the previous week. It was a modern but discreet structure at the back of the yard, equipped with the best telescope money could buy, and of course Owen's automated astronomical observation system, now upgraded to version 2.0. How does she look? Jason asked, struggling with his bow tie. Beautiful, Owen grinned. And nervous, just like you. Jason laughed. His son truly had a knack for reading people. Here, help me with this? He gestured to the crooked bow tie. Owen stepped closer, adjusting the tie with practiced hands, thanks to hours of watching YouTube tutorials. There, now you look like a real groom, not a CEO trying to fake it. Hey, I thought I'd improved my style recently. You have, Owen said with a smirk, but you still need to work on looking less corporate. Upstairs, Tiffany stood in front of the mirror in the master bedroom. Her dress, a delicate creation of lace and silk, was worlds apart from the extravagant gown Karen had chosen for her cancelled wedding with Jason. It was simple, elegant, and, most importantly, reflected who she truly was. Sweetheart, Martha, her mother, stepped into the room. It's time. Mom, Tiffany said, taking her mother's hands. Thank you for everything, for supporting me when I found out I was pregnant, for helping with Owen all these years, for never losing faith that everything would work out in the end." Martha smiled, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her daughter's ear. "I always knew Jason would come back. He just needed to grow up a little and figure out what really mattered." "How did you know?" "Because he looked at you the same way your father looks at me, and still does, after 40 years of marriage." A gentle knock interrupted them. It was Rachel, who had become not just an exceptional assistant, but a close family friend. "Sorry to interrupt," Rachel said, "but someone wants to see the bride." To Tiffany's surprise, Karen Dankworth entered the room, looking elegant in a navy blue dress. "Karen, I wasn't expecting—" "I know," Karen said with a soft smile, "but I couldn't stay away. Not after everything." She handed over a small box. "It's a gift for Owen, actually." Inside the box was a golden key. "It's symbolic," Karen explained. "The Dankworth Foundation is establishing an astrophysics research lab at MIT. We'd like Owen to be our first junior resident researcher." Tiffany felt tears welling up. "Karen, this is the least I can do," Karen said. "That boy, but he has a special gift, and he helped me see that some things are bigger than old grudges." The two women embraced briefly, years of unspoken tension dissolving in that simple gesture. Outside, the 50 or so guests, just close family and friends, were beginning to take their seats on white chairs arranged in the garden. Dr. Martinez chatted animatedly with Bernard about the legal implications of patents for underage inventors. Rachel coordinated last-minute details with the catering team, while Owen darted among the guests, clearly proud of his role as junior host. When the music started, everyone turned to see Tiffany walking down the makeshift aisle, escorted by her father. Under the blooming apple tree, Jason felt his heart skip a beat. Owen stood beside him, holding the rings on a small velvet pillow embroidered with constellations in golden thread, his own design. The officiant, an old MIT professor who had taught both Jason and Tiffany, began the ceremony with a reflection on second chances and the perfect timing of the universe. But the most moving moment came when it was time for the vows. Jason took Tiffany's hands, his voice steady but full of emotion. "Tiffany, 15 years ago I was too blind to see what truly mattered. I thought success was measured in skyscrapers and bank accounts, but every day since, I've learned that true wealth is found in love, in family, in the moments we share with those who mean the most." He paused, glancing at Owen and then back at Tiffany. "You taught me what love is, and Owen showed me who I want to be. I promise to spend the rest of my life being the man you both deserve, building a life full of laughter, love, and stargazing." Tiffany's tears fell freely as she began her own vows. "Jason, you were my first love, my first heartbreak, and somehow my greatest hope. I thought I'd lost you forever, but life has a way of surprising us. I promise to cherish every moment we have, to laugh with you, grow with you, and build a home filled with love, for us, for Owen, for the family we've become." Owen, standing between them, whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Finally." The guests erupted in laughter and applause as Jason and Tiffany sealed their vows with a kiss under the apple tree where their new life together was beginning. As the sun set and the paper lanterns illuminated the garden, Owen led Jason and Tiffany to the observatory for its inaugural use. Together, the three of them gazed at the stars, ready to write the next chapter of their story under the vast, infinite sky. "Tiffany," Jason began, his voice slightly trembling, 15 years ago, I made the mistake of thinking that success meant power and money. I had to lose you, find you again, and almost lose you once more to understand that true success is having someone to share the stars with at night. It's having a brilliant son who teaches me something new every day. It's waking up each morning knowing I'm part of something greater than any corporate empire, a family." Tiffany wiped away a tear before beginning her vows. "Jason, when we met, we were two young dreamers. Our paths diverged, but maybe we needed that separation to grow, to become the people we are today. You're no longer the executive obsessed with success, and I'm no longer the idealistic journalism student. We are better versions of ourselves, shaped by time and experience. And now finally, we are ready to build something real, something lasting, together with our incredible son." Owen, who had promised not to cry, discreetly wiped his eyes with the sleeve of his tuxedo. As the officiant declared them husband and wife, the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. The paper lanterns lit up automatically, a technical innovation by Owen, creating a magical atmosphere in the garden. During the reception, held in the same space now illuminated by thousands of tiny lights, Owen surprised everyone with a heartfelt speech. "When I was younger," he began, his voice clear and confident, "I used to look at the stars and make 3 wishes every night. First, that my dad would find me. Second, that he and my mom would realize they still loved each other. And third, that we could be a real family." He paused, smiling. I guess the stars finally listened. The celebration continued into the night, with special moments unfolding in every corner of the garden. Karen and Tiffany were seen chatting animatedly about Owen's future research program, while Jason and Dr. Martinez discussed the possibility of expanding the observation system project to other educational institutions. Martha, the matriarch of the Collins family, watched everything with a satisfied smile. Her husband Robert approached with 2 glasses of champagne. "Remember when Tiffany told us she was pregnant?" he asked, handing her a glass. "You said everything happens for a reason." "And it does," Martha replied, watching Owen show off his new observatory to a group of intrigued guests. "That boy, he's the bridge that reconnected 2 souls that should never have been apart." At a nearby table, Bernard was chatting with Rachel about the changes at the company since Jason had stepped down. "You know," Bernard remarked, "when he told me he wanted to resign as CEO, I thought he was making the biggest mistake of his life. But look at him now." Rachel smiled, watching Jason dance with Tiffany, their faces lit by genuine happiness. He finally figured out that some things can't be measured in quarterly reports. As the night wore on, Owen unveiled a special surprise. With Dr. Martinez's help, he had programmed his observation system to project a star map in the garden sky, creating an amplified artificial version of the Milky Way above the guests. "And that," he explained to an awed group, "is the constellation under which my parents met, Cassiopeia. It represents a queen who was punished for her vanity, but to me, it represents something else. It shows how the universe sometimes needs time to align the right stars." Jason and Tiffany exchanged emotional glances at their son's explanation. It was remarkable how he had turned his passion for astronomy into profound metaphors about life. Later, when most of the guests had departed, the Collins-Greedy family gathered in the observatory. Owen adjusted his telescope to show Jupiter, which was particularly bright that night. "Look," he pointed, "you can see 4 of the Galilean moons tonight. Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto," Jason recited, proud of his hard-earned astronomical knowledge. "Exactly," Owen grinned. "And did you know they represent a small family orbiting around something bigger, just like us?" Tiffany hugged her son, his small tuxedo now slightly wrinkled. "When did you get so wise?" "Probably when I realized I had the best parents in the world," he replied with a wink. "Even if it took you both a while to figure that out." Jason laughed, joining the family hug. "You know, son, sometimes the greatest geniuses are the ones who take the longest to understand the simplest things." The night ended with the 3 of them lying on the garden lawn, gazing at the real stars mixed with Owen's projections. The apple tree above them still glowed with paper lanterns, creating a canopy of soft light. "So," Owen broke the comfortable silence, "when are you going to tell me about the honeymoon?" Jason and Tiffany exchanged surprised looks. "How did you—" "Please," Owen rolled his eyes. "Do you think I didn't see the tickets to the Galapagos on Dad's computer? And there are 3 tickets, not 2. We wanted to surprise you," Tiffany explained. "And you did," Owen assured them. "It's just that I'm very observant. Besides, I've been asking to visit the Galapagos ever since I started studying evolution." Jason tousled his son's hair affectionately. "You're impossible to surprise." "Not entirely," Owen said with a grin. "How you both surprised me today. This was the best day of my life." "Ours too, son," Tiffany whispered, squeezing Jason's hand. "Ours too." Above them, a shooting star streaked across the sky, and for the first time in a long while, none of the 3 needed to make a wish. Everything they had ever dreamed of was already there, under the starry canopy of a perfect night in Cambridge. 8 years later, the MIT auditorium was filled to capacity for the extraordinary graduation of Owen Collins-Greedy. At just 18 years old, he wasn't only the youngest graduate in the history of the institution, earning degrees in robotics, engineering, and astrophysics, but also the first to receive simultaneous offers from NASA and the European Southern Observatory in Chile to lead groundbreaking projects. In the front row, Jason and Tiffany watched with pride as their son stepped onto the stage to deliver his commencement address. Beside them, two 7-year-old girls, Kristen and Kimberly, wore matching shirts that read, "Our big brother is a space genius." "When I was 10, Owen began, adjusting his mortarboard, "I gave my first presentation in this very auditorium. It was a project about astronomy and robotics, born out of my passion for exploring the unknown. But what I didn't realize at the time was that my greatest discovery wouldn't be about stars or planets, but about the power of love and family." Jason squeezed Tiffany's hand, the memory of that pivotal day rushing back. The twins, restless in their seats, whispered excitedly about how super important their brother looked on stage. "My automated astronomical observation system, which began as a science fair project, is now being implemented in observatories worldwide. But its true purpose was never just scientific. It was about connecting people through a shared fascination with the universe, just as the stars connected my own family." In the audience, Dr. Martinez smiled with pride. Karen Dankworth, now a prominent patron of the sciences through her foundation, clapped discreetly. Even Bernard and Rachel, still integral parts of the family's life, were there for this special moment. After the ceremony, the family gathered at the backyard observatory, now a much more sophisticated space, though it still retained its original charm. The twins twirled in their dresses, pretending to be space explorers as they darted around. Jason asked Owen if he had decided which offer he would accept. Owen smiled mischievously and said he had a third option in mind. Pulling an envelope from the pocket of his gown, he reminded his parents of the trip to the Galapagos shortly after their wedding. "How could we forget?" Tiffany laughed. "That's where you decided to combine marine biology with astronomy in your studies." Owen opened the envelope to reveal a set of documents explaining that he had just received approval to establish the first fully automated underwater observatory in the Galapagos. It would be a project merging ocean exploration with astronomical observation. Jason expressed his amazement, and Owen added that there was more. Smiling at his parents, he asked if they could guess who was funding it. "The Dankworth Foundation," Tiffany ventured. "Even better," Owen replied. "Greedy Enterprises, now under new management, wants to establish a scientific research division, and they want me to lead it." Jason's heart swelled with pride. The company he had built was now transforming into something far greater and more meaningful under his son's leadership. Kristen interrupted, asking if they could see the turtles again, and Kimberly chimed in, asking about the dolphins. Owen grinned and assured his sisters that they would be his special assistants on the project. Someone needed to document all the discoveries, after all. The girls cheered, already planning their future scientific adventures. That night, the Collins-Greedy family celebrated not just Owen's graduation, but the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. Beneath the stars that had guided them for so many years, they toasted to the future, to family, and to the endless possibilities the universe still held for them. Somewhere in the vast expanse of the cosmos, the stars that had once heard the wishes of a lonely boy shone a little brighter, content in the knowledge that they had played a part in weaving this story of love, redemption, and discovery. If this story touched your heart and you want to keep following inspiring and emotional tales, don't miss our upcoming videos. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay updated with new content that can brighten your journey and bring valuable insights. Join us and keep exploring stories that truly matter. I'm sure the next video that pops up on your screen will move you as well, so click on it now and I'll see you there.